Hello. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and we are back for another episode of the Real Housewives of Atlanta. This is season Sweet 16, and this is episode 17, the reunion part 1. Now, I want to know what you guys thought of the reunion part 1. I thought it was okay. I still honestly think it could be down to 2 parts, but it was entertaining, so I wasn't mad at it. It was definitely not the worst reunion, but it most certainly has not been the best so far. But a lot of things were uncovered in this first part that I was not expecting. So I guess that makes sense now that we're getting more out of it. Cause like, oh, okay. So we got into some things, and even though Britt is no longer part of the show and she basically quit, we got to see real time her quitting, which was basically her not showing up, and all the ladies being flabbergasted and quite surprised by it. And interestingly enough, it's weird to me because looking back, when you really look back at the season and how things played out, Britt, you should have thugged it out and went to the reunion, because towards the end of the season, we started seeing, at least in my opinion, I start seeing that Shamia and Kelly are on some BS. And pretty much, Portia, whether you believe her words or not, it's kind of giving that's what it is. And so it's evident that if Britt would have been at the reunion, she would have been sitting on the same side as Portia and Phaedra, because it seems like they were still good with her. So I am a little confused still to why Britt just decided she wasn't going to continue on. But I mean, we know her reasoning that she gave, like her suing, but still it doesn't. She really could have just, ironically, I think the second half of the season saved her, where she actually possibly would have been invited back. So her quitting to me was kind of crazy, but let me know what you think about that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the reunion. One more thing before we get into reunion, I forgot to mention. So Britt did also make an announcement on her Instagram that she's not returning. Her choice, of course. But she did it by posing in her reunion dress. So she went as far as to get the reunion dress. So it seems like she was going to go and then just decided she wasn't going to go. And that's interesting to me. So this is a picture of her in her reunion dress, but why go through all the trouble and just not go? Like, I really think she really jumped the gun when it came to how things played out. Like, towards the end, yeah, her mouth is lethal and she's doing the most when it comes to her mouth, but she was not as unlikable as she was starting off. Now, it was giving she might be a little bit of a fraud, but like, no offense, I feel like a lot of the Atlanta housewives get fraud, if you really think about it, but that's neither here nor there. And it's just still, we're not going to go around in circles on it. You already know what I think about it. So anyway, let's really get into the reunion itself. So we have all the ladies showing up, getting ready for the reunion. And as everyone's getting ready, we first see, I believe it was Phaedra first, who tried to go in Britt's room and realized Britt wasn't there. And she's like, what is going on? So then immediately, once she realized that Britt wasn't there in her dressing room, she went to Portia's room, and Portia was taking a nap, child. She was like, I'll get, she had everything ready to go. And she was like, I'm just going to take a nap and then get ready for the show. And she even was like surprised too. Both of them were very surprised. And they actually both tried to call Britt and she sent them to voicemail. So they were clearly left, like basically everyone was left in the dark of Britt's decision. So that's kind of what happened there. And then other than that, we saw Shamia and Kelly getting ready. They're both getting along very well, of course. And then we see Angela join their room, and it seems like they're just talking about, the reunion, because they're new. All of them are new. So they're like, yeah, I'm nervous, but it should be good. Pretty much doing the small talk of it all, which was nice to see because, Angela did butt heads during the season with both Shamia and Kelly, so it was nice to see them being able to just like kiki a little bit before the show. And then we see Andy on stage, and he's already been waiting over 2 hours for these ladies. And one by one, they are appearing. Of course, Drew's the last to appear. Drew would just be staying late, but in this case, they were all late. All of them were late. And so officially then the reunion starts. And so we start off after doing the whole pleasantries of saying intentions and whatnot and all that good stuff. We get into Portia and her being back and her being able to film in the house and basically what's going on with Portia and her divorce. So we're now finally getting brought up to speed about her and her divorce and what's going on with all that. And while this is happening, Kelly is just kind of giving her looks the whole entire time. And Kelly, and this is why I hate to say this, I'm starting to believe some of Portia's saying. I think Portia be lying, all these women be lying, but I don't know. It's this, there definitely is coming off like there is an alliance. And the fact that Portia is the one who blew it up and mentioned that there was an alliance, it actually made more sense after she said all that. I was like, actually, this actually checks. Ironically, it checks. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. So Portia's just talking about her divorce, and she's basically she was just kind of just saying like, yeah, it's similar like how Kelly's, and I forgot what it was exactly that she said, but similar to like Kelly's situation when it comes to not being able to be done with it when you want to be done with it. Like, it wasn't really her trying to do a full comparison of their divorces. But Kelly, for whatever reason, took offense to it and made a thing of it. She's like, don't compare this. Like, y'all been married, like, we've been married for 11 years. Y'all married for like 11 months. It's not the same. And which, hello, I definitely agree with that. But it was just kind of weird that I don't know where the energy was coming from. And so then Kelly and Portia are just kind of going back and forth. But Portia isn't really giving her anything. Portia, this whole entire time, when it came to how she handled the reunion, she actually handled it very, very well. Like, in a way where it was like progress. And Portia accused Kelly a lot of times throughout this first part of the reunion that she's doing a lot of stuff for the show. So the security guard for the show, like, instead of like basically devaluing or basically not feeding into Kelly's narrative of Kelly has a security guard because of her estranged husband, is abusive or whatever. That's kind of what Kelly has been like saying to us, the audience, all along. And Portia's like, it might be a little bit of that, but I think it's mainly for the show. And then we kind of a little bit got into Kelly's finances during this first part of the reunion too, because for one, her restaurant still hasn't opened. After we saw throughout the season, which, by the way, you already know this season was filmed like almost 2 years ago. It's like, what? So, yeah. We also find out from Kelly that she finally got her divorce. And I forgot if it was Andy who mentioned it or someone mentioned it, where basically they were talking about, life in the shy. Anyway, where was I at? Okay, so the other thing that was mentioned was Kelly, and basically her the reason why that restaurant didn't open, which was dead. And then I think it was either Andy or someone, I forgot who it was like, so you're giving your dog a spa day, but you're not paying your back, you're owing money. And Kelly kind of scooted around it, but like, the people want to know, why are you basically paying for this lifestyle? And I'm using air quotes, I know you can't see it. But you're paying for this lifestyle, but yet your business ain't handled. But I mean, what I mean by your business, I mean like, your other things. And so her reasoning behind it though was because this divorce cost so much money for her to keep her attorneys and all that, which I believe her, but at the same time, there is a very beautiful flex to live within your means. I know we want to be flashy for the show, but if you're on the show, we're assuming that you're already well off. You don't have to give us glam and all this extra stuff at all times if you really are, if you really have the story of this divorce. Because really, that was my main disappointment when it came to Kelly this season, is I just wanted her to, like, instead of like flexing and doing this whole fabulous stuff, she already had a built-in story about her divorce not being finalized. And she could have also just kept it real, say, hey, this is normally how I would be living, but I can't do that because of this. And I think that would have made her a little bit more relatable, honestly, to a certain degree. And also, too, I don't think the conflict with her and Britt would have even happened if she was like doing that. But also, too, I'm still confused about why that conflict happened. I don't know why that happened. I know they're talking about the styles of it all, but I just don't. Honestly, after this first part of the reunion, I don't really believe Kelly and Shamia's stories, a lot of what they have to say now, because Portia, whether she was lying or not, she did put a seed in my head, and now I'm thinking it because it actually makes more sense. But anyway, let's move on. Sorry, a couple other notable things that happened during the reunion was them talking about Cynthia and what she got going on underneath, and her and the Amsterdam guy, and the age difference with that. And then that kind of parlayed to Phaedra talking about her man that's younger. And then the other thing that came up was oh, I almost forgot this thing too. The other thing that came up, which also what led to the Shamia and Portia back and forth a little bit, was, did Shamia introduce Simon to Portia or not? And yeah, I don't know. Because Portia pretty much put that narrative out there that happened, and Shamia agreed with it. Now Shamia's trying to say that's not what happened. And to me, Shamia seems like the type that will change her story to avoid backlash. So I hate to say this, but I kind of believe Portia again. I just don't believe it. I feel like Shamia is not as nice and sweet as she comes off as when it comes to like the Portia and Shamia of it all. I think they are two sides of the same coin. It's just outwardly, Portia's more obviously like that. But then, yeah, I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Let me know. But that was the other thing that happened. So then also within this reunion, we did talk about Portia versus Drew. And this was honestly, so far, this has been Drew's best reunion so far already. And it's only just the first part. We didn't even get to her storyline. We got into her storyline by proxy of Portia, because Portia had nothing going on and made Drew her storyline. And Drew basically called it out, and she's like, instead of you talking about what's really going on through your life, you're focusing on me and you're making me your storyline. Like, what is that about? And she also cleared it up but Portia knew about all this stuff. She just changed up as soon as the cameras came on, which I agree. I feel like that is really what happened to a certain degree. I guess to me, just Drew doesn't seem like the type of person, and I don't know these people from a can of paint. She is messy, but she's like a harmless messy. It's not real mess where like it really has like major implications. So to me, I feel like Drew did try to reach out, and she's basically tried to say that the whole entire season. It's just how she was saying it didn't really quite make sense, but she really stood on that this reunion. She's like, no, I tried to text you, I tried to call you multiple times, but you were living your best life being an African princess. Like, you were not checking for me. I was trying to reach out multiple times, tell you what was going on. And I wasn't intentionally, she was basically saying, I wasn't intentionally trying to film with him, but he is part of like my business. So if I'm sharing what's going on with my business, by proxy, he's going to be on camera. And so that all made sense to me. And then, oh, I forgot to mention, Cynthia, pretty much, even though she's a friend of, she was on the stage pretty much the whole entire time. Like, they're not treating her as a friend of for this reunion. And it's for the reason because Britt's not there. So they kind of need her there now. Now they can't really just like have someone come and go because not everybody's there. But anyway, so Cynthia kind of like pops up, and she's like, but I guess it just would have been in better taste if you were to like try to notify her, da da da. And she's like, well, I actually did. She just is not. She's acting like that didn't happen, but it did. And so that's the disconnect. And Drew was like, you know, you could say, because then also Portia tried to accuse Drew of trying to like sleep with Dennis for tracks, or not the tracks, but like trying to like sleep with Drew for studio, like basically studio time. And Drew was just like, yeah, no, I need to see the receipts. And of course, Portia didn't have the receipts, and we never did see the receipts, by the way, ever. Portia, that's a case of Portia definitely lying when it comes to that. She's definitely adding extra sauce. And so that was kind of the other thing that was mentioned during this reunion. But the whole entire time when Portia and Drew were going back and forth, Drew kind of ate her up, because Drew was like, because Portia tried to say like, well, you should be worrying about what's going on with Ralph in your basement instead of worry about what I got going on. And she's like, and then Drew's reply was, she's like, Simon says you don't have no storyline. I was like, oh my God. I was like, everyone was like, everyone kind of laughed because like, yeah, she kind of got her there. And even if you go on Instagram and they have the clips of that, even Portia was like, yeah, she kind of got me. But what ends up happening though is Portia ends up apologizing to Drew. She's like, I did too much. I didn't need to put 20 on 10. I mean, honestly, if this would have been communicated, all would have been good. And so they hug it out. And Drew was like, honestly, that was all I wanted from you. I just wanted to talk it out. I feel like we could have talked this out in the first episode and it would have been it. But the thing is, Portia didn't have a storyline, so she dragged it. But we know that's what it was. And also, what started this whole entire conflict in the reunion, because I think Andy was like, putting out one of Drew's interviews, calling Portia's comeback season a flop. And Drew's like, yeah, stand by that. It was a flop. So one thing, also the reason why Drew won so far when it came to reunion part 1, Drew didn't apologize now once. She stood on business that whole entire time. And I was like, and she's like, I did nothing wrong. The fact that you met up with, and then Portia even apologized for meeting up with Ralph. She was like, yeah, I did that to be petty. She's like, I know you did. Like, that's messed up. So yeah, that's kind of how that ended. We'll see if more of Drew is talked about during this reunion. I'm sure it will be, because Drew and Angela were pretty much the two that carried the show once the Britt and Kenya situation happened. But speaking of Britt, so then now they kind of get into Kelly, and I already mentioned Kelly stuff because when we were talking about Portia, I just figured I'll just put Kelly stuff in there at the same time. But we're talking about Kelly some more. We're talking about Kelly versus Britt, and how the issue that Kelly had was not only did she try to take her style, she tried to take her whole entire team. She's like, this team I've been working with for years. It's not just for the show. Like, these people have been my team forever. And so that is where her beef lied, was that the fact that she tried to have her whole entire team. And also Kelly did a crappy job of communicating with Britt, that she was basically letting her use a makeup artist and stuff after the Kenya stuff of it all to support her. It wasn't supposed to be a permanent thing, but Britt went ahead and decided she was just gonna like try to like use these people constantly and the whole entire time. And so then the other thing that was talked about is how Britt is not there. And by the way, for you, those who are new to my reviews, I don't go in order. I just go and think. I try to go by person to person because in certain degrees it makes more sense to do that. And also in other degrees is if I went by scene to scene to scene, I know me being a person who's long-winded, this is going to be a much longer review than like I want it to be. So person to person makes it where it's quicker. I'll just respectfully, that's just what it is and why I'm doing that. But anyway, so at the beginning, I think it was kind of at the beginning, they talk about how Britt's not there. And then we also find out, that's when we find out that Drew is being sued by Britt, or being threatened to be sued by Britt. And both Kelly and Shamia, they're both saying they're disappointed because they basically want some resolution. Hopefully she can speak her piece of what's going on. And, she's not going to do that. She just decided to just peace out on them. And so then Portia and Phaedra, they're both just like venting about how, this is a sisterhood. And when Phaedra says this, I just like, I try not to laugh because I'm like, girl, right message, wrong messenger. But anyway, she's like, it's just sad that she just didn't feel comfortable enough to even come to a reunion to speak her piece. And that's kind of that's what Phaedra says. But then Portia's like, yeah, I think part of what's going on here is this alliance. Like, she mentioned something about alliance, but I think also it had to do with Shamia and Portia going back and forth. Because Shamia and Portia already started kind of going back and forth a little bit during this reunion. Because the whole entire time, both Portia and Shamia are just giving each other like these looks. And I'm still genuinely confused of what is causing all this. Because even when at the very end where they had that issue at the end of the finale, to me it's not enough for them to just be the way they are where they're not even cool. So hopefully, probably, I'm assuming part 2 we're going to get more into that, why they're not okay. But anyway, so then the other thing that gets brought up though is Kelly feels a way about how Britt insult about the abortion, like what she did there. Because Kelly's like, I'm going to have to explain to my girls now what that is. And I wasn't ready to have that conversation with them about that. And also, that's not even the truth. Like, as soon as I had my twins, because I had health issues, I got my tubes tied right after that. So I was done. Like, so I don't understand why she would think that's a thing. Also, too, if I was Kelly, I would have straight up said we weren't close enough for me to like disclose that kind of information, because I do believe Kelly when it comes to that, because that's not something you just share with people that you don't even know like that. That's one of those things that's kind of deep. That's a deep secret. Like, I don't have that kind of a secret, but I do have a couple of those kind of secrets, but not that particular one. But I do have those kind of things. And I promise you, it took me years when it came to a lot of my friends to share that. And I had to be in a very comfortable space and very drunk. But truthfully, that's not just something you just throw out there. Like, especially since now we know that they don't really know each other like that. But Portia did call out that there was an alliance. And, they also talk about the styles of it. I already mentioned that. But Portia mentions that there was an alliance. Originally, it was supposed to be Shamia, Portia. Well, no, it was actually supposed to be Shamia. According to Portia, it was supposed to be Shamia, Kelly, Britt, and Portia. That's Shamia's version of it. See, so Portia's version is them without her. Shamia's version was like, no, you were part of it too. And Portia's like, no, I wouldn't have been part of it because that's the kind of thing that ruins these shows, to do that kind of thing. That's why I wouldn't have done that. And that, her saying that last part makes me actually believe Portia. I don't think that she was doing the alliance thing. Because I think she knew that she don't really mess with Shamia like that for real, so she would never do that. I think she had an understanding that she thought she had with Shamia where they're not going to talk about their issues that they may have with each other that Shamia kept breaking. I mean, I hate to say this, the more and more I watch this reunion and watch the show, the more I'm starting to side with Portia. I don't think Portia's completely lying when it comes to some of the things. Now, do I think Portia's a good friend? Absolutely not. I think she's a horrible friend. Of course not. I definitely don't see her being a good friend. But do I believe Shamia being the innocent one and the poor me of it all? No, definitely not. Like, I feel like them two, because they were cool for so long, the reason why they were able to be cool for so long is because, to me, I think they are passively, aggressively two sides of the same coin. I just see it. I see that Shamia likes to play the innocent card way more than necessary. And she even tried to do with other people in the season. It just didn't work for her. Like, there's just too much out there where she's denying saying this, denying saying this, denying saying that. I was like, girl, how many times are people accusing you of stuff and you're trying to say that didn't happen? Because what Britt said that Portia, what Shamia did to Portia, like earlier on, Drew and Angela said that she did that. So it's like, that's your the fact that you have a history of already doing it, but you're trying to say you didn't do it at all either times, it's making me not believe Shamia. So that's kind of the back and forth a little bit of what was going on between Shamia and Portia. Of course, I'm sure we're going to get more into it a little bit. But then the revelation then also was Angela's just like, I didn't even have a clue that there was this alliance. So they did this alliance, but then tried to make it. And this is when I knew that they were lying, because they were just like, so y'all had this alliance and like didn't, include me. I didn't know that. And then Kelly pipes up and she's like, well, yeah, because you had Drew. And I was like, so now you basically outed you unknowingly outed Shamia being a liar, because Shamia tried to deny the whole entire thing, but then Kelly in turn's like, well, yeah, you had Drew. So her saying that as a response makes me know that Portia wasn't really lying about that. Portia was telling the truth about that. So, yeah, that's kind of where we left off on the first part of the reunion so far. I'm still trying to figure out what are they going to talk about in part 2 and 3. I think the only thing that they could really do is talk about Portia and Shamia, and then, I mean, they didn't really get into the Drew segment yet, and they didn't get to Shamia's segment yet, and they didn't really talk about Phaedra too much. Phaedra and Angela kind of went back and forth a little bit, but I don't know. It just didn't really land the way I thought it was going to land. So I would say so far when it comes to this reunion part 1, Drew won. Drew probably had the best performance when it came to reunion so far. Followed by, I mean, really it was Drew. I'll just say that. But anyway, that does conclude part 1 of the reunion. Let me know what your thoughts are. Like I said, it was all right. I feel like they are trying to drag it where it can be 3 parts, but yeah. But the news about there being alliance, that changes a lot of my thoughts of how I feel about some of these women. And it makes me love Angela and Drew even more because they weren't part of the BS of that. Now, do we believe that Portia wasn't part of the alliance? That's the part that I want to know. Do y'all believe that? And because Britt's the one who kind of outed that. Britt's the one who told Portia, according to Portia. And she didn't want to speak to it, but she was like, yeah, Britt told me this. And then somewhere along the line, somewhere later on, Britt got kicked out of there. I don't know. I don't know. None of these people are always are the most credible sources, but yeah. But anyway, let me know what you think. That does conclude this part one of the reunion. I promise next time I'll be on camera. I'm not on camera this time around because I'm in between hairstyles and I'm about to get my braids done again. I think I'm gonna go red this time, so like a copper red. But anyway, that does conclude the video. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel to get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and I will see you next time. Bye.